Our big book this week is called The Emperor's Egg. And we already know that an emperor penguin is a type of penguin, and it's the type of penguin that we see in Happy Feet, and maybe the type of penguin that we think of most when we think of a penguin. And this story is about the emperor penguin having a chick and what happens as the little chick is born. And it was written by a man called Martin Jenkins, and it was illustrated by Jane Chapman. Can you remember what illustrated means? Well done. It means it's the person who drew the pictures. Now let's have a look and see what happens to the emperor's egg. Down at the very bottom of the world, there's a huge island that's almost completely covered in snow and ice. It's called Antarctica, and it's the coldest, windiest place on Earth. The weather's bad enough there in summer, but in winter, it's really horrible. It's hard to imagine anything actually living there. But wait, what's that shape over there? It can't be. Yes! It's a penguin. It's not just any old penguin either. It's a male emperor penguin, the biggest penguin in the world. And he's doing a very important job. He's looking after his egg. He didn't lay it himself, of course. His mate did that a few weeks ago. But very soon afterwards, she turned round and waddled off to the sea. That's where female emperor penguins spent most of the winter, swimming about, getting as fat as they can, eating as much as they can, and generally having a very nice time, as far as you can tell. Which leaves the father penguin stuck on the ice with his egg. Now, the most important thing about egg sitting is stopping your egg from getting cold. That means it has to be kept off the ice and out of the wind. And what better way to do that than to rest it on your feet and tuck it right up under your tummy. Can you see the egg? Which is just what the father penguin does. And that's how he'll stay for 2 whole months, until his egg is ready to hatch. Can you imagine it? Standing around in the freezing cold with an egg on your feet for 2 whole months? What's more, there's nothing for the father penguin to eat on land. And because he's egg sitting, he can't go off to the sea to feed. So that means 2 whole months with an egg on your feet and no supper or breakfast or lunch or tea. I don't know about you, but I'd be very, very miserable. How would you feel if you had to sit on an egg and stand in the freezing cold for 2 whole months without even having any dinner? I think I would feel a bit grumpy. Luckily, the penguins don't seem to mind too much. They've got thick feathers and lots of fat under their skin to help keep them warm. And when it gets really cold and windy, they all snuggle up together and shuffle over the ice in a great big huddle. Most of the time, the huddle trundles along very, very slowly. But sometimes, when the penguins get to a particularly slippery slope, they slide down it on their tummies, pushing themselves along with their flippers, always remembering to take care of their egg and trying hard not to bump into each other. And that's how the father penguin spends the winter. Until one day he hears a chip, 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 chip. His egg is starting to hatch. It takes a day or so, but finally the egg cracks right open and out pops a penguin chick. Now the father penguin has 2 jobs to do. He has to keep the chick warm and he has to feed it. But on what? The chick is too small to be taken off to the sea to catch food, and it can't be left behind on the ice. Well, deep down in the father penguin's throat, there's a pouch where he makes something rather like milk, and that's what he feeds to his hungry chick. The father penguin can only make enough milky stuff to feed his chick for a couple of weeks. But just as he's about to run out, a dot appears on the horizon. It gets closer and closer, and yes, it's Mum. She starts trumpeting, hello, and the father penguin starts trumpeting, hello, and the chick whistles. The racket goes on for hours, and it really does sound as if they're incredibly pleased to see each other. As soon as things have calmed down, the mother penguin is sick, right into her chick's mouth. Ugh, yuck, you may think. But yum, thinks the chick, and it gobbles the lot down. It's the mother's turn to look after the chick now, while the father sets off to sea for a well-earned meal of his own. About time too. The end. That's the end of our story today, Year 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's have a look at our big book activity for this week. Okay, so let's have a look at our big book activity for this week. You should have in your pack, you should have a page that looks a bit like this. It says the Emperor's Egg at the top. And this is the big book activity that we are going to be doing this week. And it says, can you cut out the sentences and put them in the correct order? So we've got some sentences down here, and you need to cut out each sentence. So cut in the black lines, cut out each box, and put them in the right order because they're not in the right order yet. Let's read our sentences and then we'll have a look and see if we can put them in order together. The mummy penguin goes to look for food. The daddy penguin looks after the egg. The mummy penguin comes back with more food. The egg starts to hatch and pops a penguin chick. The daddy penguin has to keep the chick warm and feed it too. Now these sentences aren't in the right order, so it's your job this week to cut them out and to stick them up here in the right order. But I've got some big sentences on my board and we're going to do this together. So it's pretty much the same sentences that you have. They might be a little bit different, but that's okay. You can still do it and you'll do a great job. Let's have a look. My sentences aren't in the right order. So you listen, and as I read them, you see if you can remember which thing happened in our story first. The daddy penguin looks after the egg. The daddy penguin has to keep the chick warm and feed it too. The mummy penguin goes to look for food. The mummy penguin comes back with more food. The egg starts to hatch and out pops a penguin chick. Now, can you remember which of those things happened first in our story today? You can point to your screen if you think you know which one comes first. Well done if you pointed to this one. This happens first in our story. The mummy penguin goes to look for food. So I'm going to move it and I'm going to stick it up here, right up at the top, because it comes first. happened after the mummy penguin went to look for food? What did the daddy penguin do when the mummy penguin was looking for food? He looked after the egg, didn't he? Well done. If you remember that the daddy penguin looked after the egg, so we need this one. And it says the daddy penguin looks after the egg. It comes next. So let's move this one out of the way. And let's move this one up. Okay, let's have a read and check so far what we've got. The mummy penguin goes to look for food. The daddy penguin looks after the egg. The daddy penguin has to keep the chick warm and feed it too. The mummy penguin comes back with more food. The egg starts to hatch and out pops a penguin chick. Now,